Very good.
Doing all right.
Well, for me, not being in Dallas in person to enjoy all the autograph signings and live events going on, I was in order looking forward to NXT number one, Hall of Fame two, and coincidentally WrestleMania third.
I, I'd have to agree with him on that, like in that order, because I mean, considering WrestleMania had to be kind of pieced together with a lot of people being injured, it definitely was like I wouldn't say a massive disappointment, but it definitely, I mean, for what they had to work with, you know. But NXT, yeah, I was really that was an amazing show. I definitely enjoyed that a lot.
Well, for me, I'm going to say right now that I am not a longtime follower of Shinsuke Nakamura. I recently started looking up some of his stuff on YouTube. Actually, a few months before any kind of talk of him getting signed to WWE, because I have a friend that's a big follower of New Japan, and he's always trying to convince me to check out his stuff. So after minimal knowledge of Shinsuke Nakamura, watching NXT and just that entrance alone, and I just thought it was a really good entrance. Like it's starting with the music. I listened to his original theme a few times from New Japan, and then compared it to the current NXT theme. And man, I swear I thought that song was pretty epic, and it had like a nice mix of a little bit of like kind of like a Asian heavy metal with a maybe not really dubstep. I don't know what you want to call it. Not really hip hop either, but just going from that, just from the entrance alone, the guy came out to a great reception of a lot of fans of all different kind of wrestling, not just WWE Universe product. And I mean the crowd tore it up for the guy, and he just came out like he was just oozing like he was a star. I mean, he just
Well, I'd say overall, I mean, with the exception of the Austin Aries match, because I just think they paired him with a guy that was just a little too big for him to wrestle. It was a really good show. As far as Nakamura, I have some knowledge of him because the Access channel was showing some older, like from like 2014 New Japan episodes. So I have seen some of his work probably since like the last maybe 8 months. And I definitely like his style. The match I thought with him and Sami Zayn was like excellent. Like
Oh, I enjoyed that match a lot, and I have another reason for enjoying it on a different level because I watched it with two of my pals, one of my best friends who's an extreme wrestling fan like myself, and another who absolutely can't stand wrestling. So as we watched the whole show together during the final match, I noticed something out of my friend who's at my house watching live with me that he was actually engaged into the match, and I think it was just because of the blood.
Uh, I'm kind of like on the fence on it because I mean I know they're trying to do the whole PG-13 thing or PG or whatever rating, but it's like you're kind of you got a good match going and to pause it, it's like you're kind of slowing it down and taking a little away from it, but I don't think it affected that much. I still think overall it was a great match. But then I understand too if a guy's bleeding into his eye, that's going to mess up his vision. So maybe you do have to kind of look at that issue.
Well, the first off, one of my favorite parts about watching pro wrestling from as a young kid until now is seeing footage and promos outside of the ring, including stories, especially between the legends that I grew up watching. So I always look forward to the Hall of Fame just for the sake of watching a wrestling show that has no in-ring action aside from what you're going to see on the build-up videos and packages. But this class is like, it's kind of like getting to the point where I'm not going to, I can't see myself in the near future seeing a full announced Hall of Fame class where I have a personal connection to everybody that's going in. So like for this class example, I would say my biggest, absolutely my biggest connection to anybody would be Sting because I've been a Sting fan since probably about definitely 1996. Before that, not had to do a lot of back watching because I didn't watch WCW until the late 90s. But I mean, other than Sting, it was just hard for me to really. I mean, I respect everybody, especially the Freebirds. So I recently became a pretty big fan of the Freebirds, just doing research and watching their old stuff. But it's just hard to enjoy a show like that when you don't have too much of a connection to the guys and girls going in, but also that you're not exactly getting a really great inductor, especially hearing stories. For instance, Vader, everything Vader had said about Stan Hansen going in, I already heard those stories, and I know not everybody watching has heard them, but for me, looking, just to hear something new and some new insight, maybe a story you never heard, it just wasn't that great for me, and I don't want to say anything bad about it because I think that's also an occasion where you honor the hard work and dedication of people. Like, it should not be taken lightly because of everything those people go through to get to that point in their career to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. But
No, I watched the whole thing. I kind of agree with Joe was saying on like a lot of it. I mean, my biggest connections were probably Sting and Big Boss Man. But like something like like the New Day putting in the Freebirds. I mean, why didn't they just have the Von Erich guy come out? Was it Kevin, I believe? And he should have. Yes, I did. And then another thing I was thinking too is maybe they should probably not have an audience. It should just be like the wrestlers and their family because I thought like everyone who went in, they're going in the Hall of Fame. Like the crowd should give a nice standing ovation. And like when Slick came out to put the Boss Man on, it was like you could hear crickets chirping, and it's like I know he wasn't in WWF a long time, but I mean, even if you have to fake it, clap for the guy. Show a little respect to the dude.
absolutely. Yeah, see, okay, here it just brought up a recent memory from one of the last Hall of Fame is when one of my all-time absolute favorite managers probably would be my favorite manager. Not saying he was the greatest, just my personal opinion, Paul Bearer. And like when it comes down to the guys and women that have passed away getting inducted, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say cringeworthy because those people try their best as not being entertainers, but when you have the family of like, the deceased wrestler accept the award in their honor, it's really hard to get any kind of like reaction from the crowd or anything. Which that's exactly the point. Like Brad said, and you guys think that it should be more of a event for the people in the business and less for the general public. Because if somebody we worked with for 30 years were retiring and they're going to have a little luncheon for them at work, you're not going to invite Joe Schmo on the street to come and watch them retire and leave their 9 to 5 job they've been at for 30 years. I think that's definitely, it should be televised and we should be able to watch it, but I I don't really see the need for having a live audience for the occasion. So the point too, with so many of the bigger names were inducted the same year in the Hall of Fame, and between how wrestling goes, where Hogan, for perfect example, a few years later people have a whole different opinion on the person in general, and then they get kicked out of the Hall of Fame, whatever you want to say. But how many guys that are already in the Hall of Fame where you kind of lack the living wrestlers right nowadays, you lack a really good headliner. Now that Sting's in the Hall of Fame, I cannot think of a legitimate enough headliner for the Hall of Fame next year that is not on the active current roster.
Uh, well, I definitely think because I'm pretty sure Rick Rude's not in there, and Owen Hart definitely has to go in, so like soon. I would
That's
definitely have to
that's
say
two
that.
deceased wrestlers. Not to cut you off, but to start, you know, right there, neither one of them guys are alive to be a
Yeah.
headliner.
Well, for headlining, unless it's going to be Undertaker or The Rock, I really can't really see anybody else doing it. And another thing, just to go slightly off the subject, but stick with the Hall of Fame theme here, is another thing I don't like is they don't they don't acknowledge the wrestler's whole body of work. Like there was nothing Blade Runner showing for Sting. They did not show Papa Shango. Last year for Rikishi, they did not show him with the Samoans or head shrinkers. And honestly, I think he was better as a head shrinker than he was with that whole hip hop dance gimmick. But it's like if you're gonna put him in the Hall of Fame, put him in the Hall of Fame. All their body of work. Don't just acknowledge one character. I think they should touch on like everything.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Because I mean, I could. Okay, I'm just gonna off the top of my head, I'm gonna name five potential headliners, and this includes obviously active roster. Okay, Cena, Kane, Big Show, Rock, Undertaker. They're all still going. Some of them are part time. Some of them are like three-quarter time. You know, whatever you want to consider them. However, like Daniel Bryan, I'm like, okay, I think the dude's only about 36 years old. So, let's all hope that, he'll be around for many, many years to come. And like you said, give a little time to breathe and miss the guy. And, even 5, 10 years from now, Daniel Bryan could come back and not even be 50 years old and get inducted to Hall of Fame as a headliner. The only problem is, who else goes in between now and then? And as you see, the format they got going every year, which I think is actually pretty cool, considering that that way you don't have to have any like omissions of gender or anyone deceased or even people that were never on the main event card. So you're always going to have like you're going to have an undercard guy, you're going to have the international guy, or somebody that was never under the WWF banner. You're going to have a tag team. You're going to have a woman. Definitely some kind of a minority. Uh, Not that not saying that it's a bad thing. That's a good, real good thing that they're going to include everybody, and then you're going to have your main headliner. So it's basically like you're fitting different pieces of a puzzle every year, and some of that's like I said earlier, a lot of those pieces of that puzzle are deceased, and not having their presence there alone hurts the Hall of Fame. So
I mean, maybe they could put like a few less people. I mean, that way they could save it more. Or like you're saying, like give it some time before, like you said, 5 years before putting people in right away. I mean, the format. I mean, I pretty much like it. The only thing I would like really, like I said, I would do is one, get rid of the audience because I don't think they really need to be there, and two, just touch on the career more. Because I mean, yeah, Godfather was good, but honestly, I liked Papa Shango better. And even if it was like a cheesy gimmick, like they started off as something like not that good, you should still see like, hey, this person did this, but look what they amounted to. They took like a really lousy character when they first started off. You know, they were green, they paid their dues, and now look where they're at now. They had a great career because you should touch on that because a lot of people now don't even do that. It's like like a Brock Lesnar came in or a Randy Orton came in, and they pretty much were like, "Here, you got the title at a young age." Like back in the '80s or '70s, whatever you want, era you want to pick. It's like you usually didn't get the heavyweight championship belt until you're in your 30s and you were like more established. Now it's like they're just handing it over to people who are like just barely over 21, and it's like they haven't really paid any dues or like done what some of the other legends have done. And it's like, and then you're not going to even touch on like some of these people's work. It's like I think you should touch all their work, show even if it was like something cheesy like the Blue Blazer with Owen. It's like it's like look what he went from there to when he became like high energy to the Black Heart. I mean, you need to show like how he evolved from point A to point B.
Oh, absolutely. Like I was going to say too, when I was talking about the categories of the Hall of Fame, no wonder why you guys didn't chime in, and I forgot it, the celebrity wing, which is completely useless in my opinion. However, yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
absolutely. But like you said, a tag team wing would be an excellent addition. So I look at it this way: not only could it be a tag team, but it could be a faction of any kind. Now, as of right now, the only double Hall of Famer that I'm aware of, I could be wrong, would be Ric Flair going in as Ric Flair and also the Horsemen. So right now, if you talk about potential headliners, you got two of the biggest factions after the Four Horsemen, where the members, the not only that, but the founding members are still alive, being the NWO, Hogan, Hall, and Nash, or DX, Triple H, Shawn Michaels. I don't see a problem with inducting the NWO. Yeah, given Hogan's issues, whatever. All three guys are already in the Hall of Fame singly, and then DX, you got one half is a part-time wrestler and the other half is already in there. And then when you go exactly when you made the Harlem Heat point, I couldn't agree more. And same with the Rockers as well. The Rockers were a hell of a tag team. They lit up AWA. Like them guys would, Marty Jannetty would never go in solo, but a tag teams, some guys were just not meant to be, solo stars. Like, there's nothing wrong with just being a tag team guy. And then, like you said, the Nasty Boys, who never really got split, unless you want to count like Brian Knobs and late WCW in the hardcore division. But, some guys were never split up from a tag team to go on to be solo stars. And they were just solely a tag team. Bushwhackers, there you go. Talk about last year.
I do like that. I mean, you could possibly put Flair in a third time with Evolution later, not right away. I wouldn't go with them. There's more deserving factions there. But with the tag team, though, I would say that should be specifically starting off as a tag team. I don't want like the Rock and Sock connection or the Mega Powers, or because that was just kind of thrown together. I don't think that would legitimately count as a tag team. I would consider it like someone who's been a tag team starting off or legitimate tag team for over a year.
Agreed. Okay, let me start off real quick. I don't want to get on a tangent or too deep or meta on anything, but WrestleMania is something you can look forward to annually. And in order to look forward to something annually, you have to be alive. So, considering that I'm still alive and glad to be among the living here on Earth, it's awesome to be able to watch wrestling with friends or loved ones if given the situation. But in my case, yeah, with friends who have the same common interests. So when you get to see such a show, like you talk about a freaking spectacle, man. I mean, I'm not a sports guy, so I don't look forward to the Super Bowl every year. But what I look forward to is WrestleMania, and yeah, just for like the sheer production of it and consider the size of the stadiums they're playing, it's just an awesome spectacle. And compared to the stuff we grew up watching, which what it evolved to is just awesome in itself. It's a great event, and I hope to attend it live next year or some year in the future. It's a great excuse for people to get together. I mean, you could do that for any pay-per-view or Raw if you really wanted to, but Mania is it's special. Just considering it's annual, it's all out. You get together with friends, you eat, you drink, you have a good time, you crack your jokes, you get nostalgic, you critique it, whatever. But this show this year, I mean, without being too negative on it, and I totally give the company a passing grade considering the injuries because I'm sorry, like Cena or not, you really feel the hurt that is not having Cena on your product. I mean, that guy, with all the criticism and heat that guy got over the years, you really miss his presence on their show when he's hurt because that guy, he is a star no matter what anybody has to say about him. So I would have to say my highlight would be the ability to gather with friends and have a good time. But personally, it's going to be just seeing the Undertaker still active at his age and everything he went through in his career. Always liked the Undertaker. Probably my second favorite wrestler of all time. Just to be able to see him still go, still the entrance, the gong, the theme song, just everything about the character. I absolutely love. Always have. Great to see him on there. The show overall, it was what it was. Most of the matches were, I wouldn't say they were terrible. They were definitely okay, but I would not say any of them were good except for, I'm just going to have to say the women's three-way match between Charlotte, Sasha, and Becky.
Well, I do agree on some of the stuff Joe said there. I mean, without Cena and Seth Rollins too, I mean, you're missing some big keys there. I thought the ladder match was not too bad. I mean, part of me kind of feels bad for Kevin Owens because it seems like they want to push him and then they smear him and then they push him and they smear him. But to see Zack Ryder win it, I actually did enjoy that for the fact that like him and like Damien Sandow and a lot of these people that are just stuck in a go nowhere situation, just to give them that like you know give them a moment that like he'll probably remember forever since they're not really doing anything with him. He could at least say like, "Hey, I did something at WrestleMania," to give him something for just being stuck where he's at and not being used. So I thought that was good for him. Yeah, Undertaker definitely like everything Joe said with Taker. I mean, he's easily my top two all-time favorite. So just to still be able to see him, that was definitely amazing. But I mean, yeah, overall best match. I think I'm gonna agree with Joe on that one. It had to be the Divas. And I'd also like to just to go off the subject real quick is just throw out a good plug for the NXT women. That was a really amazing match that they had. Agreed.
I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10, and there's going to be an asterisk next to the 6, but the asterisk is going to be a bandage because of all the injuries. So that justifies it.
Well, I'd say, I mean, for like the NXT, I'd give that easily a 9. Hall of Fame, I'd give that probably about a 6, and then WrestleMania, I'd give that about a 5. Well, I only saw the first hour of it, so I can't give too much of an opinion on it, but I did like the opening, but yeah, I mean, it was kind of like, yeah, what was the purpose of like, I'm gonna give Shane control for 1 day. Was that just to please the fans, or just to see what Shane would have done if Shane would have beat the Undertaker?
All right. So, okay, the way I feel about that is they really don't. I just don't think they. I'm okay. I'm gonna go with underestimating how good of an asset this guy is, because considering he's only been there a few months, yet okay, regardless of how well he was received by the audience or the internet crowd, whatever you want to call it, he's still a little. He's only been there a few months to the point where why is he in the main event picture with the WWE audience? Definitely deserving of it, but you talk about like rushing certain people into situations, like it's kind of like the Roman Reigns factor. You know, they pushed and shoved him into the position that he's currently in. Well, isn't AJ the same situation, but coming in as the challenger? It's like, give the guy a little room to breathe and get some wins. Even, I mean, considering his size, give him the one of the other straps. I mean, I could totally see him as, kind of being like the John Cena of the U.S. title, but give him the IC strap, so then you could get him into a lot of great rivalries with, a lot of of course, the internet darling guys, but he could also help. He might be like a Cesaro, where if you put AJ in the ring with somebody like I don't know, Curtis Axel, or somebody struggling in the darker part of the spotlight, maybe could, like, squeeze a couple of good in-ring matches out of them, and get a more of a respect for those guys on the undercard. So AJ going into headline a pay-per-view within 3 months of being in the company is awesome, but just for the way that they write and book the show, I don't see anything good coming out of that situation.